Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us, those of you here, those of you online, but particularly online. I want to welcome Spogmay Ahmed from FFPC and Ambassador María Alonso from Madrid. Welcome, both of you, and thank you for being with us. Isabel Diaz from CSIC, thank you for being with us. Thank you, everybody. I want to welcome you today for one of the many series of joint activities with the Spanish Embassy in Lebanon, with Ambassador Jesús, who's also a dear friend of the Asfari Institute and of AUB. I want to talk a little bit about the conversation that we're having and our colleagues who are with us, and then move to the first short segment of this event, because we're doing back-to-back two initiatives in this event. A few years ago, with my friend, my colleague, Paola Salwan Daher, we started at the Asfari Institute working closely on the issue of feminist foreign policy and the way they link with the women, peace and security agenda, and then the meaning of the feminist foreign policy in a changing world, where they became a little bit selective rather than across the board. We're very happy to continue this conversation with Spain, which remains one of the few European countries holding the fort on feminist foreign policy. And we're very happy to have with us Ambassador María Alonso, who's the ambassador at large, I think, of feminist foreign policy. But at the same time, during the past few months, with the support of Ambassador Jesús and also our dear friend at the Spanish Embassy, Antoine, who is the architect of this really close conversation between AUB and Spain. So I want to leave it now to Ambassador Jesús Santos to give us some opening remark and to introduce the first segment of this conversation, the signing of the MOU between AUB and CSIC. Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Lina. Thank you always for your inspiring words, as usually. Dear Ambassador María Alonso, Provost Dawi, Director Lina Abou-Habib, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome also to those who are following us on streaming, especially those who are doing so from Spain. And on behalf of the Embassy of Spain, it's a great honor to welcome you all to the 9th edition of Dialogues in Feminine Plural, a forum that over the last 3 years has become a hallmark of Spain's commitment to dialogue, equality, and the promotion of women's leadership in all spheres of public life in Lebanon. Today's edition is dedicated to a subject that is central to Spain's vision of global action: transnational feminist diplomacy, notably in times of conflict. Spain actively participated in the approval of Resolution 1325, whose 25th anniversary we just celebrated. Since then, we have been on the forefront of this agenda. Over the past years, we have worked to place gender equality, human rights, peace building, and inclusive development at the heart of our diplomatic efforts. Our Feminist Foreign Policy, launched in 2021, is not simply a political declaration. It is a roadmap for transforming the way we understand and exercise diplomacy. Spain's gender equality foreign policy did not emerge in a vacuum. It is rooted in a domestic normative framework, including gender violence legislation, equality laws, and increasing institutional parity. That has placed our country amongst those with the most advanced gender policy development in Europe. As a concrete example, you may remember in this sense our recent 8th edition in this room about the role of women in decentralization. Our policy is rooted in 3 fundamental pillars: rights, because no society can progress if half of its population is left behind; representation, because women must be present where decisions are made, and resources, because equality requires concrete investment and measurable commitments. Spain firmly believes that the foreign policy that promotes equality is not only fair, it is effective. Evidence shows that societies where women fully participate are more stable, more prosperous, and more peaceful. This is why Spanish diplomacy consistently defends the women, peace, and security agenda, advocates for the protection of women human rights defenders, and promotes cooperation initiatives that empower women and girls across the world. In a time marked by global volatility, humanitarian crisis, and growing inequalities, feminist foreign policy is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It is a way of ensuring that our international action remains anchored in dignity, human security, and sustainable peace. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the distinguished speakers and experts joining us in this edition. Allow me to mention my colleague, Ambassador at Large for the Feminist Foreign Policy, Ana María Alonso Giganto, for taking the time to participate today with us. Your voices enrich this dialogue and reinforce Spain's conviction that the pursuit of equality requires both determination and international collaboration. In this sense, as Minister Alvarez mentioned last October, the 5th Conference on Feminist Foreign Policy, which will be hosted by Spain in 2026, will allow us to advance the consolidation of a feminist diplomacy that is global, transformative, inclusive, and guided by equality. Today is also a special occasion because an MOU will be signed between the AUB and the Consejo Superior de Investigaciones Científicas, with the presence of Provost Dawi and Madame Isabel Díaz, Vice President for Internationalization and Cooperation of the Spain Higher Council for Scientific Research. Let today's discussion inspire us to continue building up a feminist foreign policy that reflects the values Spain stands for: solidarity, justice, multilateralism, and equality. A foreign policy that puts people, all people, at its center. Thank you very much, and I wish you an engaging and inspiring session.
Thank you. And what I retain from what you're saying is a policy that is both transformative and inclusive. And I think this is also part of the conversation that was taking place right now with our colleagues from Women Deliver, and we will be talking more about this when we start. But meanwhile, I want to give the floor to Provost Dawi.
It's a pleasure to be joining this signing event today. I think the ties and the relationships that we have as a university with Spain has been solid and strong for not years, decades. I mean, I know colleagues working on research projects. I know about partnerships that have already been in place, and we believe there is much more potential in that area. The work that the Asfari Institute is doing, I think, around very relevant themes. Today's event is at the core of that, are examples of types of engagements that we want to broaden and expand. So we are very excited to be signing tonight this, I would say, MOU, and it's really an agreement that will set the stage for broader engagements at the research front, so between AUB and CSEC in Spain. We believe in the importance and value of research and knowledge production to the advancement of societies. If you look at our mission as a university, I mean, we're educators, we teach, but also at the core of our mission is knowledge advancement and research and scholarly work advancement. And we cannot do this on our own. We're in a part of the world that is always subject to difficult times and crises. We're in part of the world that is highly resource constrained, but we have great, outstanding human capital. We have also a long legacy, and we believe in partnerships with like-minded institutions. In this case, it's really something at the national level, and it's a very special occasion for us. And I see the potential. I mean, Mr. Ambassador, you mentioned areas of development, equity, rights. These are at the core of our values as an institution. We believe in the impact of universities on communities, on societies, and we really look forward to expanding work with many partners in Spain through this agreement that we are signing today. So, Madame Diaz, good to have you among us. We hope to be able to host you at AUB at some point in time. Ambassador Jesús Santos as well, looking forward to the session and again to the discussion and the panel. And again, Ambassador Alonso, Ambassador Jesús Santos and Ambassador Alonso, that's true, yeah, on the screen. So we're very happy to have you among us tonight, looking forward to the next session. With this, I'm happy to have with us also tonight Vice Provost for Research, Dr. Ili Ael, who will be, I would say, the partner from our end, working with you and your team, Madame Diaz, on translating this agreement into actionable projects. At the end of the day, I always say MOUs are important to sign, but what really matters is after what projects we would launch, how we would make best use out of those. And I think we have the potential, we have the right people to push in that direction. So thank you very much, and looking forward to fruitful collaborations. I'll have to, thank you. It's okay. Good. Thank you very much.
Otherwise, it would be just too mention.
I'll have a copy as well. So that's good.
This is a great start, and with this, I want to start our panel, and let me introduce our guests first, our panelists first. On the screen, we have with us Her Excellency Ana María Alonso Giganto, who is the Ambassador at Large for Feminist Foreign Policy. Ambassador, you have to promise us that you will always have an ambassador at large for Feminist Foreign Policy, because they are disappearing from other countries. We really don't want this to happen in Spain. So hopefully you will be with us for a long time. I also want to introduce and also talk a little bit about our friend and colleague Spogmay Ahmed. She's joining us from New York. She's the Senior Policy Advisor for the Feminist Foreign Policy Coordination. And I'm very happy that we are members of the collaborative, of the FFPC collaborative. I will leave it to Spogmay in her intervention to talk to us a little bit about their work. And last but not least, a very dear friend, personal friend of the Asfari Institute and friend of AUB, Paola Salwan Daher, who has a long history of activism. She's a lawyer, she's a human rights lawyer, and she is currently the Senior Director for Collective Action at Women Deliver. Okay, I made a major mistake. I'm very sorry, Isabel. I made a major mistake, and it's not the first time, so please don't take it personally. I wanted to give you the floors first, Isabel Diaz from CSIC, for her words. I am so sorry, but again, not the first time, probably not the last. But not least, a very dear friend, personal friend of the Asfari Institute and friend of AUB, Paola Salwan Daher, who has a long history of activism. She's a lawyer, she's a human rights lawyer, and she is currently the Senior Director for Collective Action at Women Deliver. Okay, I made a major mistake. I'm very sorry, Isabel. I made a major mistake, and it's not the first time, so please don't take it personally. I wanted to give you the floors first, Isabel Diaz from CSIC, for her words. I am so sorry, but again, not the first time, probably not the last.
Don't worry. Can you hear me? Can you? Okay, good. Don't worry, Lina. I was already opening the microphone to stop you. I don't take off. No offense taken. No problem. But before Professor Provost leaves I saw he stood up. Yeah, before he left, I cannot only say. I mean, I join your words. It really. Yeah. Thank you so much. I see you now. Much better. Thank you very much for this opportunity to get to know you, and hopefully we will get to know you in person. It was my boss, Javier Moreno, who had the first meeting with the ambassador, and also thank you, the Embassy of Spain in Lebanon, for giving us the opportunity to get to know new partners for CSIC. In fact, you're not so new to us. We are a large institution with 17,000 people, and 124 research institutes, 124 research institutes in every topic of science: feminism, agricultural research, quantum technologies, chemistry, whatever. But what is most important above all is 10 of our institutes are already publishing with the American University of Beirut. We already have collaborations ongoing, European projects and some international calls. But like you said, Professor, this is just the beginning. Our intention with this MOU is to strengthen this relationship and provide with contents. And the contents could be also feminism in the foreign policy, because at the SIC, we are working in both, actually, in science diplomacy on one hand. We are very closely engaged with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Science, Innovation and Universities to have a common agenda. In that agenda, our aim as scientists is to provide our foreign affairs policymakers with tools, with the semantics, with the narrative, so they can be the ambassadors of the Spanish science as well. And furthermore, in our feminist agenda, actually, I'm sure you have remarked already, but I'm not there. Today is 25th of November, is the International Day for, well, let me read it to say properly, for the elimination of violence against women. And we have a strong determination as an institution to fight against violence against women, but we also have the feminist, mainstreamed along the institution, not only in the contents of our science, from chemistry to social science, but also in the parity of our structures. Our president is a woman, is the second woman leading the largest research performing organization in Spain. And we work on balancing the gender gap and the gender numbers. But like I said, for us, it's a dual strategy, not only in numbers and in parity, but also in the contents of science. Because if we look closely, if we look carefully, every topic of science has an impact in gender. I do work with atoms, and you may say that atoms have no impact in women, but it does when the atom forms a filter of water that it gets implemented in the field, and women are the one collecting the water. So everything, when you look at it carefully, and that's what scientists do, we do look at things deeply and carefully, we find contents that could reinforce this feminist agenda in foreign policy. So with this, I just want to let you continue with your event, which is I'm really jealous. I wish I was there, actually. But unfortunately, I have to go downstairs and listen to another talk, an institutional talk, probably more boring than yours. Just, I would like to leave saying thank you for inviting us. Thank you, Ambassador. And thank you, Antoine, also must be there in the room for making this happen. And also my colleague, Monica, who is with me joining us, joining you today from our legal team, who has facilitated the signing of the MOU. Thank you very much, and I hope this is just the first meeting of a few more to come.
Thank you, Isabel, and my apologies again for forgetting. But thank you so much, and I really appreciate everything you said about feminist research and feminist methodologies, which are really at the heart of what we are trying to do. So let me start with our conversation today. A couple of days ago, we had a discussion to think about how we will do it, and we didn't want to do just talks. We thought we could have an interactive conversation, and I have prepared a few questions that I would like to ask each one of you to engage with. But before I had remembered about or was told that I had forgotten about Isabel, I was introducing Paola and Women Deliver. And there are a few landmarks right now that are important. First of all, as Isabel was saying, today is the first day of the global international 16-day campaign against violence against women. This is a campaign that is really the ways in which efforts globally coalesced to push forward for global solidarity against violence against women, and it's something that we celebrate. I want to invite you to follow the social media of both AUB and the Asfari Institute. Every day for 10 days, we will be posting information, data, research, and also testimonials related to this day and why it is important. So I invite you very much to follow it. Also, we are gathered here after the end of the third, I think, or the fourth ministerial conference on feminist foreign policy, which was held in Paris. And I'm very happy that we have Spogmay and Ambassador María Alonso, who were both in Paris. But what is also interesting is that we are having this conversation before the next ministerial conference on feminist foreign policy, which will be hosted in Spain. So there is a reason for this timing, and that's why it is important for us. So without further ado, I want to turn to Her Excellency, to María Alonso. And María, I want to ask you a first question. A few days ago, Canada withdrew from, or at least said that it's backing away from FIAP, from its feminist foreign policy. Other countries, North-based countries, have also withdrawn from feminist foreign policies. And that's why I'm saying Spain probably is one of the last bastion. From your own positionality, how do you see Spain pushing forward and moving forwards with its feminist foreign policy now that it's more important than ever, now that it's important that it be aligned with other mechanisms such as the Women, Peace and Security Agenda and other important resolutions? So over to you, María, and maybe if you could take a few minutes to share with us your reflections on this point.
So first of all, thank you very much for this invitation, Lina. Thank you to the Asfari Institute. Thank you to Ambassador Jesús Santos also for gathering us here today. And congratulations to the American University of Beirut and the Centro Superior de Investigaciones Científicas of Spain for signing this MOU. I've been listening to Isabel Diaz, and what she said, it's been really powerful. She said that one of the leading scientific institutions of Spain has a feminist approach and has a feminist perspective and a gender perspective in all that they do. And they are working, they are a scientist institution. Therefore, this explains to what degree Spain is mainstreaming feminism and gender equality across all the government, across all the institutions and the territorial governments. I want to say also, give a recognition to the Centro Superior de Investigaciones Científicas. I take this moment to say that I had the opportunity to work with them back in 2022 on the International Year of Glass, on tabling this resolution to United Nations. So what they are doing is really groundbreaking. Well, from the Spanish perspective of feminist foreign policy, Lina, and as you mentioned, it seems that we are the last ones standing together with France. Probably some other member states out there that I would like to mention, like Colombia. Indeed, it is a challenge, but we take it as a challenge that is worth fighting for. What we are struggling to do during this year, since the inception of a feminist foreign policy in Spain back in 2021, is to create very strong connections with civil society organizations, and Spogmay Ahmed is here to bear witness of how we have been working very closely with civil society organizations, such as the FFP Collaborative, for instance, and many others around the world and in Spain. And then we have also been working in localizing our feminist foreign policy so that it's not something that is detached from reality, but that it goes to the to the ground, to the field, that is very fit for purpose, really. And we have been doing this from three pillars or three foundations of our feminist foreign policy. First, there is coherence. There is internal coherence and there is external coherence. So we are not doing this, as Ambassador Santos said, in a void. This is not something that Spain has just come up with. A Spanish society was feminist from a long time, and the Spanish society and the Spanish politicians, all of them together, have been working in passing laws, legislation, and putting in place measures to have equality, gender equality. So what we are doing here is just projecting our reality in our foreign policy to the world. Then we have also a geographical coherence. We are working with countries and regions that have always been very priority places in the world for us. I can mention, for instance, and you will understand it very well if you look at our own history. Mediterranean basin, from the north to the south, from the east to the west. We work with all these countries. We focus on them, on their needs, and we project our foreign policy there. And our feminist foreign policy is also that of creating alliances with these countries. And here is Lebanon to bear witness also of all the efforts that we are doing to project this feminist foreign policy beyond our borders and in the Middle Eastern region, in MENA region, like, for instance, implementing the WPS, the Women, Peace and Security agenda right there in Lebanon. Also Africa, and especially the Sahel area, together with, of course, Latin America and the Caribbean. Those are the three priority regions for our foreign policy, and therefore our feminist foreign policy also focuses on those regions. We have 4 strategic directions. One is intersectionality. We don't look at feminist foreign policy from just one point of view. We take the layers of this onion one by one. We look at them and we analyze them. So this intersectionality looks into girls, adolescents, women, human rights defenders, and women with disabilities, women with sexual orientation and gender identity that are diverse, etc. And we also take into consideration the experience of women that come from very far away regions, like women from Afghanistan. And in this point, I would like to say that we place a very special relevance in the women and girls in Afghanistan. So for 3 years, for instance, we have been working very closely with them since 2022. We've been working with them in preparing conferences where women from Afghanistan can write down and design their roadmap for the future of their own country, and where they can also put up strategies to bring the de facto authorities of Afghanistan to accountability. So we will, for instance, in December, as of the 12th of December, we will co-organizing with women from Afghanistan the third Hear Us Summit. We also move into the direction of having a feminist foreign policy that is adequately financed. It is very important that we allocate resources, both human resources and economic resources, to everything that we do, so that we don't do it in a void. And therefore, we are very, very concerned about the cuts in official development aid, for instance, and how this is affecting the implementation of our own feminist foreign policy and the implementation of gender equality foreign policies from other countries. Number third, we want to have a feminist foreign policy that is operational, that is not just words, that we can move from words to action. And in that regards, I would like to mention that we just finished the drafting of our third Women, Peace and Security National Action Plan. We will be presenting this plan as of December, and we will be able to talk more about it in the future. And number four, we are globally inclusive. I want to mention this. Even if we have a brand, and that is of feminist foreign policy, we want to be inclusive of other member states and other actors who maybe at the present can no use this brand, but who are completely aligned and like-minded with our own objectives and purposes. Therefore, in our alliances, we care for the meaningful contributions of these countries, and we want to work together with them, because we want to reach out not only to those who have reached the highest point and peak of gender equality in their countries. We want to look down into those middle ground countries that really matter to push the needle forward when it comes to gender equality. So basically, this is our position right now. And as you said, Lina, for the time being, I don't like to promise, I don't like to swear anything on anything, but I can say that for the time being, we are having a feminist foreign policy, and the government is committed to it. Thank you. I finish here my first intervention, and I hope this answers your question.
Thank you, Anna. And there are a couple of things that strike me in what you said is, well, first, the ways in which feminist foreign policy is not a silo. It should not be in silo, but should be aligned. But the alignment is both internal and external, with all of one's foreign policies, not just a particular one. And it's not about numbers of women diplomats. It's much broader than this and much more transformative. But also what you mentioned in terms of being inclusive and intersectional. I think that resonates quite importantly. And I think those who have withdrawn from feminist foreign policy essentially have a problem with this alignment and have a problem with being inclusive and transformative. So thank you for this. I want to move to Spogmay and Paola, and then come back with a second round of question to you, Anna, and then again Spogmay. Spogmay, thank you for being with us. I know this is a holiday week, kind of, in New York, and I'm very happy that you're with us. And you were with us in our last year's Feminist Foreign Policy event, which actually happened in September on the day of the pagers. I remember it very well, on September 2024. And we were together in the last ministerial conference on feminist foreign policy in Mexico City, and you were in the first ones also. And as a senior policy advisor at the Feminist Foreign Policy Collaborative, you have been part of this whole process, but also part of convening organizations across the world to, let's say, to activate feminist foreign policy and to, as Ambassador said, to localize it. But now you've just come back from Paris, Spogmay, and I think all of us would really like to hear your reflections on this last ministerial conference in Paris, and maybe what were your takeaways and what were your takeaways and what were the add-ons from Mexico in July 2024? Over to you, Spogmay.
July 2023, thank you so much, Lina, for the opportunity to join you today and just for all the incredible work that the Asfari Institute has carried out over the past several years in deepening and expanding the field of feminist foreign policy. And it's always great to share space with Ambassador Alonso and Paola as well. As you mentioned, Lina, I'm a senior policy advisor with the Feminist Foreign Policy Collaborative. So we are a shared space for feminists working across government, civil society, philanthropy, and academia to collectively strategize and advance more feminist approaches to foreign policy. Our organization was born out of a community request of sorts. Our partners across sectors really desired a third space where they could openly engage with one another, share successes and challenges, and find opportunities to deepen and to advance their work in areas in which it was proving really difficult. And that partnership has been incredible over the past several years, to be able to enter into new spaces, meet new partners, test and challenge the field of feminist foreign policy, and raise the bar for what we know we can accomplish. So getting to your question around the fourth ministerial conference on feminist foreign policy in Paris, where we actually launched our defining feminist foreign policy report, which I would love to speak a little bit more about in the second round of interventions. We joined over 52 governments and 500 leaders in marking this pivotal moment in feminist foreign policy's journey. So during the conference, the collaborative, we also announced that we'll be working with the government of France in designing an accountability mechanism to track any commitments coming out of the ministerial conferences. So this is an effort to urge greater transparency and to help ensure that feminist foreign policy objectives are clear, meaningful, and measurable. Among the highlights of the conference, I'll note, was its concurrent sessions, where we got to hear from feminist foreign policy advocates and policymakers from across the globe on issues like women, peace, and security, reproductive health, crisis, conflict, and multilateralism. Our own global partner network for feminist foreign policy, which is an informal network that we manage at the collaborative of over 100 partners, co-created a concurrent session on best practices in government civil society collaboration, which is something we identify as a key ingredient to success. Our partners shared learnings from various geographic and political contexts on how to foster ownership over policy outcomes and what's needed to make policy processes more inclusive. 31 governments also signed a joint political declaration at the conclusion of the conference, which does have a lot of language this community has been pushing for. So I certainly recommend checking that out and seeing where we have progressed. In that document, the governments commit to protecting and advancing reproductive health. They recognize the existence of diverse forms of families. They make clear connections between feminist foreign policy and climate change, as well as the implementation of the women, peace, and security agenda across both national and foreign policies. They also reiterate their commitment to rule of law, democratic principles, and multilateralism, and express their support for civil society, feminist movements, and human rights defenders. Now, among civil society, we're now having lots of conversations on how to bring these commitments to life. For example, the declaration, while it addresses a lot of the core issues that we have been hoping for, doesn't make reference to the current funding crisis facing women's rights organizations, nor does it name the outcomes of the recent Fourth International Conference on Financing for Development, which Spain was the host of, and brought a lot of our feminist foreign policy principles into that space. So looking ahead to the conference in Spain, how can we help bridge this gap? How can we build upon Spanish leadership and encourage funders to step up in support of gender equality? Similarly, whether it was the conferences in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Mexico, or now in France, civil society engagement has looked so different in each ministerial conference. We have a number of moments now in the calendar year, from the Commission on the Status of Women to Women Deliver. All of these moments will be leading up to Spain's ministerial conference. So how can we cultivate more robust civil society participation, reach more communities interested in and impacted by feminist foreign policies, specifically looking at the interlinkages with the Women, Peace and Security agenda, which I know is particularly of interest to the Asfari Institute. How can these FFP ministerial conferences more directly and urgently address ongoing conflicts and crises? Can they be used to urge political and diplomatic action? Which policymakers across different foreign policy fora can we bring into these spaces? So these are all some of the questions that my colleagues and I at the Feminist Foreign Policy Collaborative will be grappling with over the coming weeks and months, and we certainly welcome insights from broader constituencies and members as well. But overall, we were glad to see greater leadership at the Fourth Ministerial Conference. We're glad to see governments showing up, that 31 governments signed the political declaration. Really pleased to see that Spain has committed to continuing the conference in 2026. And we hope that these governments, in collaboration with civil society and movement partners, will deepen this momentum going into the next year and going into Spain, which has already stood out among this cohort of countries. So feminist foreign policies are needed now more than ever, from local to national to regional to global. We're hoping to see greater action. So I'll stop there, and I'm happy to speak a bit more about the findings of our report and what we're hoping from the global feminist movement in the next round of questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Spogmay. And I appreciate mentioning how can we all collaborate to make sure that for the upcoming conference, ministerial conference in Spain, that there's a robust civil society participation, which is one of the areas that really interests us. And I want to turn to Paola. Paola is here with us for the last 2 days, actually, and co-organizing a consultation process with Lebanese, Syrian, and also MENA-based civil society organizations. Spogmay mentioned something, but I want to put it in a timeline. So it's really a number of milestones, one after the other. So there was the ministerial conference in Spain. Next month, we will have the reconferencing in Kathmandu. In March, the annual Commission on the Status of Women at the UN, leading to your conference in April, and then to the next ministerial conference on feminist foreign policy, and that would be the 5th in a row. And you're here actually building towards the Women Deliver conference, but also you're part of all this successive important moments. So as you're preparing for the Women Deliver conference in April, I would really like to hear from you, so does with everybody else, on how, I mean, you've been part of the feminist foreign policy conversations, even as a starting point. How is this integrated into the process leading to the Women Deliver conference in April in Australia, but also the development of one of the biggest moments of that conference, which is the co-creation of the feminist playbook? So over to you, Paola.
Thank you very much, Lina, and I really would like to thank the Asfari Institute for convening us. It's always a pleasure to be back here and also to be sharing the space, as Spogmay mentioned, with colleagues of the Feminist Foreign Policy Collective that we work really closely with, and with allied states like Spain. So for those who don't know Women Deliver, we are a global advocacy organization. We're also a convener. We convene the biggest gender equality conference in the sector. It happens every 3 years, and we leverage our convening power to further gender equality and sexual and reproductive health and rights of all, with a specific focus on adolescent girls, especially in times of crisis and conflict. And as Lina has mentioned, we really envision the conference as a moment in time. What we really would like to see emerge is a constant dialogue on gender equality and a constant reprioritization of gender equality. So Women Deliver is a moment in time, but it is in dialogue with all of these other moments in time. Our president and CEO, Dr. Malia Khan, was in Paris at the ministerial conference and also spoke about the playbook. So it's kind of a constant conversation that we're having with the movement, because obviously we are of this movement and for this movement most importantly. I just want to take some minutes to just recontextualize in which political moment we are organizing the conference. We're seeing attacks, increase of attacks and retrogression on gender equality. This is not new, on human rights, on democratic guarantees. And so now more than ever, we need two things, in our opinion. First of all is to build united fronts, broad united fronts between different organizations, with allied states, with multilateral agencies, with donor philanthropy. We need to broaden as much as possible the alliances that we can create. And the second thing that we need is really to leverage all of the tools that we have at our disposal. And feminist foreign policies are a tool. We never pretended that they were perfect. We never pretended that they were, the end-all, be-all to everything. But they were a tool. Unfortunately, geopolitical events have kind of exposed the cracks in that specific systems. And all of a sudden, we're seeing some states backpedaling from having feminist foreign policies because they have, in a way, exhibited the double standards that they have. And unfortunately, that it seemed that gender equality was not applicable to everyone. And so for us at Women Deliver, it is of prime importance that the conference that we are organizing is a soft landing space for the movement and also a space of dialogue where we can interrogate those systems and make sure and kind of reimagine. It's also kind of a reactivation of our imagination, reimagining those systems so that they can work for us and they become of us and for us. And so what we are proposing to do and what we are doing, so as Lina have mentioned, we have just wrapped up our first consultation. We're proposing to put forward the feminist playbook. And this playbook would put forward the principles and priorities that we are establishing for ourselves as a global feminist movement. This playbook will be a short political declaration, and then we are also working on what we're calling a blueprint, which is a more fleshed out document. And it's a response because, the other side, quote unquote, the far rights and the very conservative currents, they have their agenda and they're putting it forward in no uncertain terms. So what is it that we stand for? How do we reposition human rights? How do we recommit to gender equality in no uncertain terms? Because it sends a terrible message to have all of these countries saying we no longer have a feminist foreign policy. What does that mean? Does it mean that gender equality, you can take it and give it back whenever it's no longer convenient? It's too late anyway. Like we had a wave of feminist foreign policy and they left a mark. They had an impact, if only to kind of reprioritize and recenter gender equality in the global conversation. So this is what we were working with the colleagues from Feminist Foreign Policy Collective and also with other organizations to make sure that the work that they're doing is leveraged in the playbook, and also to make sure that we have those conversations where we look at multilateralism. There are, a lot of conversations on the UN 80 memo at the moment. So how do we reimagine multilateralism? We're not going to say it doesn't work, the UN doesn't work, so we put it in the bin. But what comes in its stead is very worrying. This is a tool that we have. It's not because it's not perfect and it has been weakened. So we need to interrogate how come it has been weakened? What did we do? What we didn't do? What are the systems that have enabled us, enabled those systems to crumble? And how can we remedy it and provide alternative solutions? So to answer your questions, and sorry, Lina, this is a very long-winded response, but we are working and we will be launching the playbook at Women Deliver 26. It will really center human rights obligations. It will center accountability, not just accountability of states, but also interrogate our own responsibility as civil society organization. And we will include feminist foreign policy as a key tool to further gender equality. And we will look at the demonstrated impact of feminist foreign policy. And we will highlight that one of the reasons why, like we're seeing kind of a bit of a demise of that tool, is because of double standards. So it's not the fault of feminist foreign policy, it's because of the double standards in applying human rights. So how do we remedy that and make sure that human rights and gender equality means human rights and gender equality of all, from Palestine to the US and everything in between?
Thank you, Paola. And to emphasize this, when we talked about these important moments, what I want to emphasize, and you mentioned it, is that each one of these moments, whether the reconferencing in December, the CSW in March, Women Deliver in April, and then the Feminist Foreign Policy, the space includes multi-stakeholders. It includes governments, it includes multilaterals, it includes philanthropy, and it includes donors. And it has all these spaces for us are spaces for donors education, which we have all been using as building relations and really donors education, based on the fact that there has been a demonstrable impact, that there has been transformation, and that is something that nobody wants to lose. So thank you for this. I want to go back to Ambassador Ana Maria Alonso, Ambassador. And building on this and building on the fact that we do have a timeline and we do have really important moments coming forward. And you already mentioned, the important link between feminist foreign policy and the WPS agenda. How do you see us building towards these important moments if we at least focus on the ways in which, as we prepare for these moments, we can bring together more and more together the feminist foreign policy agenda and the women, peace and security agenda? How could this happen, taking into consideration the challenges in, I would say, at least in our region, in terms of ongoing conflicts, in terms of forced migration, in terms of total breakdown of almost everything? What would be your thoughts on this, especially as you prepare to host the fifth ministerial conference on feminist foreign policy?
This is a very pertinent question, very timely, especially the very conflicting times that we are living right now. Especially in some regions. There are a number of countries which are at conflict right now, and women and girls, and also boys, children, who are suffering from armed conflict. So, aligning a feminist foreign policy with the WPS agenda is like the most natural and biological thing, organic thing that we could do. Indeed, in our policy, I see that there are three moments, but maybe there are more key moments. We have just commemorated this year, 2025, two big highlights of the women's rights agenda. One is the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action, Beijing 1995. The second one is with the 25th anniversary of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, Resolution 1325. So building up towards what's coming ahead, which is the 5th conference on feminist foreign policy, obviously we have some key moments, like you mentioned. Again, the CSW, in this case, the 70th session of the CSW. We have also major moments for CSO convening as Women Deliver. And we will be, of course, using these key moments as moments where to join dots, because this is what we need to do. We need to join dots between CSW 30, Beijing 30. We have to join the dots with WPS 25-year anniversary. Also, what happened in Seville, the FFP, the commitment of Seville, and we have to join it and bring it forward to the 5th conference on feminist foreign policy. In WPS, we see that there is key issues. Number one is prevention, how a feminist peace diplomacy can be used in prevention. Number one, by being inclusive governance. Therefore, in anything that we do, we have to be inclusive and women have to be included. Number two, by women's leadership in prevention of conflict from the grassroots organizations on the ground. And number three, by giving women the power for early warning in their own communities. And this can only be done if we have a gender perspective on how policies have to be implemented and women have to be included in decision making. Then, in responding to active conflicts, women are not only victims of the armed conflicts, as we have seen, they are also participants of this conflict. Sometimes they are in warfare, like in Ukraine, there are women at the front. And sometimes, and that's what we really have to focus on, women can be part of the solution of a conflict. And of course, if they are in the conflict, this is something obvious. They have to be part of the solution of the conflict. But we need to provide with safety so that women can safely participate in negotiations, in peace talks, and not have violence, political violence, that stops them from being a part of the solution. And when it comes to post-conflict recovery and the reconstruction of the country, again, we go back to inclusion. Women have to be included to avoid repeating a cycle of inequalities. Because if we construct without the perspective of women, half of the population, therefore, we will not have this perspective in whatever we have constructed after the conflict. Therefore, they have to be included. Otherwise, the peace will last only as there is no more social conflictivity. But we need to make sure that women are included so that the conflictivity is controlled. And we see that we can use 3 key mechanisms. Number one, we have a national WPS plans that are fully integrated into the feminist foreign policy frameworks that we all have, more or less, to a certain extent. And we have to create robust, predictable, and direct funding. Again, we go back to funding and to financing whatever we do, not only with feminist foreign policy, but also with the implementation of the WPS agenda and the national action plans. And number 3, this is something that has to be, these agendas, both of them, these are issues that have to have a multi-stakeholder approach. So that not only governments are included, but also civil society, that is basic. going to the private sector. In the case of Spain, in our WPS National Action Plan, we have included all these elements so that we have a national action plan that is more rounded and is more robust, with all the multi-stakeholders included in its drafting. So these two agendas are definitely walking side by side. They are complementary. Even in those cases where we have mentioned that some member states that were the vanguard of feminism are now, unfortunately, backing down for whatever reasons. But they will not, of course, they will not lose sight, I am sure of that, of how important it is to mainstream gender in everything that they do regarding their foreign policy. So I think that this sums it up. These are complementary agendas: peace and security and feminist foreign policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And what you were saying resonates with the fact that as we speak, as we're having this conversation, there are horrible violations of reproductive rights and also conflict-related sexual violence as we speak in Palestine, in Syria, in Sudan, certainly under the radar. Hence why we keep insisting on bringing feminist foreign policy as really an integral part of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, because even until now, even after years of the WPS agenda, for instance, in Syria, the violation against women's bodies and the use of sexual violence against women is happening also as we speak. So thank you very much. Spogmay, I want to change the script a little bit and build on what Ambassador Anna was saying. And, in any case, you wanted to reflect more on the studies that FFPC has been doing, but I want to ask you to reflect on this moving forward to Spain, especially that what we've had behind us. So the World Summit on Social Development in Doha, the recent one, was rather disappointing. Similarly, as the financing for development was rather disappointing. Hence, the spaces for conversation and discussion and stewarding of donors. So, building towards the next milestones for FFPC and building essentially also towards the next ministerial conference in Spain. What are your thoughts and what is the process that you're working on? Over to you, Spogmay. And I'm going to ask you and then the last question to Paola and then turn on for a couple of questions from our colleagues here and then wrap it up. Spogmay?
Thanks so much, Lina. I'll start with speaking about our research, which I think will get me into the question about just our process and looking towards the key moments over the next several months. So we recently launched our 2025 edition of our Defining Feminist Foreign Policy report, and this sheds light on the overall state of the field, progress, challenges, and opportunities. So at the collaborative, we prioritize working in community. So this paper was helpfully reviewed by over 40 partners across government, civil society, and academia. And it provides an in-depth analysis of over 20 countries that have either committed to or are interested in exploring feminist foreign policies. So I'll start by sharing that when we first began this analysis, we honestly thought it was the beginning of the end. 5 governments have now renounced their feminist foreign policies. Military expenditures are reaching unprecedented levels. Headlines are reading of genocide, climate catastrophe, loss, and around the world, as we've talked about, anti-rights actors are winning political power while stripping away at long and hard-fought gains for gender equality and human rights. And I share many of the sentiments that you've just mentioned around other multilateral moments as well. So in such a context, we found ourselves doubting our own movement, our years of collective policy and advocacy. But sitting down and doing this research, our Defining Feminist Foreign Policy report actually revealed a much more hopeful story than we anticipated. So in all its glory, tragedy, and stubborn persistence, we found that the journey of feminist foreign policy is actually far from over. To start, we found that feminist foreign policies have actually survived more elections than they have lost. During our period of analysis, which was the past 2 years, several governments developed and expanded their feminist foreign policies, including by publishing new frameworks, action plans, and commitments. To name a few, for example, those are France's international strategy for a feminist foreign policy. Colombia put out its feminist foreign policy document, which I'll note is the first FFP to be explicitly pacifist in its approach. Chile released its plan of action. Spain also put out its own materials on feminist foreign policy, and others with more frameworks under development, including Slovenia and Liberia, expected in the coming months. We also observed an increase in multilateral, regional, and bilateral activity around this agenda. So we now have at least 4 international declarations on feminist foreign policy, 2 regional ones, and multiple South-South and circular cooperation efforts. FFP governments, particularly across the Global South, are working together to integrate feminist goals into different areas of their foreign policy practices. Some of the examples we name in our report include, for instance, in 2024, Chile and Mexico signed a memorandum of understanding on feminist foreign policy, diplomatic training, and indigenous cooperation. Colombia, Germany, Chile, and Mexico agreed to develop a regional community of practice on feminist foreign policy. And while questions around multilateralism are rising, feminist foreign policy has somehow persisted at the United Nations, the Human Rights Council, multiple UN regional commissions. No doubt, civil society and academic discourse on this topic has also expanded and diversified. Our own global partner network for feminist foreign policy was launched in 2021 by just 14 civil society partners, and it now welcomes over 100 civil society organizations, governments, academics, philanthropies, and individuals. Regional and country level networks on feminist foreign policy, spanning from Latin America to Sub-Saharan Africa to Southwest Asia and North Africa to the Pacific, have deepened and expanded their efforts, playing key roles in policy development, implementation, and accountability. And I'll shout out the Asfari Institute itself for its role here in broadening cross-regional coordination by linking feminists in the MENA region with those in Latin America. So these groups have been consistently pushing state actors to understand feminist foreign policy as not just a women's issue, but a systemic one, and also not just a state-run project, but one that aims to shift power, privilege, and access. And one of the biggest concerns over the past few years has also been this question of institutionalization. So with this intense rollback on women's rights, how do we sustain the gains of feminist foreign policy? Or in other words, when we have political will for gender transformative change, how do we make sure progress is not so easy to overturn when tides change? In our report, we identified 5 strategies for institutionalizing or sustaining feminist foreign policy. Those include policy, through implementing legislative or administrative frameworks, architecture, by establishing dedicated departments or units for this work, budgetary, through earmarking of specific funds or investments in key initiatives, leadership, by tapping high-level roles or positions, and capacity, through staff training and knowledge building on feminist foreign policies. So in our research, we found that governments were already taking some of these steps, experimenting with innovative approaches to protect gains, like establishing gender units or protecting reproductive rights into law. And these are things that the global feminist movement can really help to identify and to leverage these strategic openings, as protecting and documenting the success of feminist foreign policies will be integral to its legacy and to its impact. So going into the next year, looking at all of these key moments entering the Spanish conference, these are all things that we will be looking at. Where have we achieved progress, and where can we celebrate that progress by building more? What are these strategic openings? How do we not only support governments in announcing and developing feminist foreign policies if context and interest is ripe, but also how do we help them to sustain those wins and institutionalize those gains so that when political tides change, they aren't so easy to turn over? I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Spogmay. This is really clear and hopeful and also practical. And you spoke about the shifting of the academic discourse, and I think that's particularly important for us. And I want to take this opportunity to mention that there is important knowledge production on this by FFPC and by others. So what we will do after this convening is really share the reports that we have, everything that people have produced around this, because a lot of it is about the impact, the transformative impact of FFPC, and also about the gaps. And you spoke also about something, and maybe I want Paola to conclude on this. The strategic openings, it's not, we're here and we're having these robust conversations, and there's robust research on this, and also multi-stakeholder interest, and also, the donor scene is not homogeneous. It's really uneven, and it's on us to understand what are the entry points for us for resourcing this work. And I want you to reflect on this. I changed the script completely. I want you to reflect on this, on what are the strategic openings. How do we navigate an ecosystem of resources that is shifting, uneven, incredibly volatile, but also the strategic moments to come and how we can leverage them. No pressure.
That was not a planned question, so you will forgive the shortcomings of my answer. Thank you, Lina, for keeping me on my toes.
The ambassador and Spogmay inspired me, and I think keeping with the flow.
So I think the political moment is... I think the political moment is a strategic opening in itself. Like, the moment of crisis carries with it the moment of opportunity. And so I think that we should not kind of get bogged down by, it's true, the overarching narrative is, cut in ODA and cut in funding. But it's actually a moment where we can collectively reflect on how we have been sharing resources and where we have been putting our attention in terms of not only kind of resource mobilization, but also in terms of defining our priorities. And so I see one key strategic opening as, and I'm very grateful to my co-panelists for really highlighting this, is that we are seeing a lot of global majority countries really answering the call of this political moment. Mexico, Chile, Colombia, I think Latin America is kind of an opening in itself because of how strong and principled their positions have been. And I think the more we can encourage this kind of collaboration and transnational solidarity, not just between CSOs and global feminist movements, but also between countries that are really setting an example, and really setting an example without being kind of the biggest donor, or without being kind of the country with the more weight, but they are consciously choosing to take principled positions across the board. So I think that, engaging more with these countries, seeing how we can create synergies between them, civil society, multilateral agencies, the donor community, as you have mentioned, is also not homogeneous. So we also need to identify our allies and continue to work with them. So apart from the global spaces that we have mentioned several times that are strategic openings, there is kind of a substantive strategic opening for us, and is how do we build an alternative strategy that decenters global minority countries, I would say, or decenters what has been the center up until now, and kind of deconstruct the hegemonic discourse that, you know, like gender equality is a priority just for certain regions of the world. Actually, that's not true, and there is kind of a plethora of initiatives that demonstrate the opposite. So how do we support these, and how do we continue to work together from that perspective? So I think that we are like witnessing a shift in the polarity of the world, and also a shift to where power stands. So maybe kind of the widest opening is a rethinking of what agency and power and who they belong to mean.
I knew you could do it. Thank you so much. Ambassador, thank you. Spogmay, thank you. And Paola, thank you. I want to see if there are any questions from colleagues with us, anything you want to inquire about, and if there are no burning questions, that's a leading statement. If there are no burning questions, I want to ask you, Ambassador de Santos, to close this conversation, and à la prochaine, to the next Dialogue au Féminin.
Thank you, Lina. Thank you to all the participants. Actually, I think this has been a very interesting session. I was thinking when you were talking about an experience, you know, my previous posting, some of you know, was in Mauritania. Mauritania, in 2019, we established, it wasn't a small project with the G5 Sahel. It was, the G5 is an international organization of integrating Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Chad. All of them, as you can imagine, not very calm and with a lot of problems. So we created a network of mediators and women mediators. It was interesting just to solve problems, different problems, even agricultural problems, the limitations of borders, and you know, it was a very interesting that we pick up 4 different groups of women. It was politicians, integrated economists, and or people with moving the economy of those countries, housewives. That was very interesting, and academics. And we established this network. In every country there was this small group integrating 5 to 10 women. And talking about transnational solidarity, that was helping in all these countries to create a network of common interest. So what I'm trying to say is that many times we don't have to think in big and huge things or huge financial needs, but just the project to be able to integrate common needs and to solve concrete problems. So that's what I was thinking while I was listening to all of you. And maybe in this, in the period that we are living now, with so much violence and so many irrational thinking, maybe the women of the country can do something similar. So that's my closing remarks. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Please join us for a bite and networking conversation outside in the lovely entrance of the Asfari Institute. Thank you so much. And Anna and Spogmay, thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. Paola, thank you ever so much.